Hey, how's everybody doing? Welcome to Monday. What is this? Today is the 26th of April, and this is the Life Cycles Live um, webinar for today. I've picked a topic that I think is near and dear to many of the people in my network and in my community. Hopefully, it resonates with you. And this is the topic of people that are entering the workforce or in a entry to midpoint in their career, even that are trying to decide what's best for them, whether it be a trade school, college, or other, right? And other could be the military. It could be entering into the field as an on-the-job technician or just general labor or worker or someone going into a certain industry. It doesn't necessarily have to be something technical, but today's conversation will be mostly geared toward technical. And for those that are unfamiliar, my name is Lucas Marino. I'm a life cycle engineer at Amentum and also the founder and owner of East Partnership, which is a learning management provider for those who maintain and manage the world's greatest assets. That's our big tagline, right? So, anyways, super glad to be able to bring you this session this afternoon. It's a little earlier than I would usually do. I'm gonna aim for right around 4 o'clock Eastern time for most of our broadcasts, unless something changes. But today I had to go a little early because I have to teach tonight for Old Dominion University. So, anyways, I just wanted to make sure that I got this on the air and out there, and I want to get right into it because time's short and we've got a lot to talk about. I try to keep these sessions to about 30 minutes. So let's dive right in. So let's say you have a young person in your life that is considering whether they should go into a trade school, college, or directly into the workforce. And we could look at a couple of the things that would help them. The others could be the military as one of the options that it helps open up trade school and college opportunities as well. So I like to kind of categorize the military in kind of a unique light when it comes to that decision. Of course, there's sacrifices involved with military service. I spent 21 years in the Coast Guard myself, so I get it. And my brother's active duty right now, and my dad was active duty for about 31 years before he retired. So we're a military family, and I had to ask myself this very question when I was leaving the home and going out on my own. What am I going to actually do? I didn't have money for college, right? So I'm making the assumption here in this case that you have zero money for college. Okay, you don't have someone that can pay your way for school. You're either going to have to take out loans to go to a trade school or college. Or you can go into the military and see what opportunities you have there. Okay, so let's jump right into the first option, and that would be trade school, right? And so for trade schools, some of the benefits to trade schools, besides the obvious of learning a dedicated skill, is that it's a faster route to a valuable skill set than, say, a 4-year degree or even a 6 to 8 year college investment to get to a profession like being a doctor or certain technical fields that require advanced licensure or education before you can enter their community with good grounding. So, in the example of someone going into a trade school, it's a pretty fast route to a very valuable skill set. Trades are high demand right now, all across all industries too. This isn't industry specific. If it was in manufacturing, general construction. This could be out in different tech industries. I work in defense. There's a ton of industry supporting defense that needs valued skilled trades. Pharma, I mean, you name it. Any type of manufacturing, they're in high demand right now. Is skilled tradesmen. It's very cost effective compared to other options, meaning that you may have to invest a good chunk of money up front to get through a quality trade program. But it's nothing compared to a lot of the costs of a 4-year and 6-year degree at a university. So one of the benefits of the trade school option is much lower residual cost. After you get out, you're not sitting there on hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of school debt. You may have debt, but probably not as much. It's a great fallback in the future. So let's say you're not sure if this is really what you want to do long term, but you decide that entering a trade is a really good initial option, and why not? You've not really dedicated yourself to any other profession at the moment, so let's go to a trade school and learn something that we've always wanted to learn and a valuable skill that we can use now. and maybe fall back on later if some other career doesn't work out for us, right? So I did this as a mechanic. I became a diesel mechanic, and I worked on everything from, small to large diesels. I didn't work on the really big ones like the Sulzers and the MAN BMWs and those types, but I could. I even became company certified for two engine manufacturers through my service in the military. So I set myself up so that if I wanted to, I could have a lifelong career as a diesel mechanic, or any mechanic for that matter, that wasn't working strictly in automotive. And I was never really dead set on doing that for my life, right, as a long-term solution. But I knew it was something I could fall back on should I need it. So I have very little concern when it comes to job security because I have that trade to fall back on should I decide that's where I need to be, or should life decide that's where I need to be, right? Because we don't always have control over these things. Solid employment options. So not only do skilled trades provide you with something of value to industry, but they provide you a lot of variation in those industries. So you may look at something like manufacturing. Well, what kind of manufacturing? You could go into automotive. You could go into, you name it. Think about it. Like if you live in a place like Virginia or South Carolina where there's tons of industry, you could be flourishing. You could go out to pharma. You could go to the oil industry. You could go to any one of them. You could go to, obviously trade specific applications, but the world is your oyster, right? So if you get into a certain trade, you would see where that trade will take you. What kind of industries is this trade most applicable to, and where is the desire strongest and need strongest for this trade at this point in time? So those are things that you should consider when picking a trade or determining whether you want to go into a trade school right away. Along with the employment options is job placement. A lot of these trade schools have job placement. So back when I was becoming a Honda certified technician for some of the Coast Guard boats, they sent me to a school in Florida called MMI, which I think at the time was the Marine Mechanics Institute, but it was like you could switch the name. MMI stood the same, but I think it was like Motorcycle Mechanics Institute, Marine Mechanics Institute, and they tagged it and put different people through different programs there. But I thought it was great because I was only there for a short period for a 2-week class, and some of these people were there for several months to get certified in a particular field. So you could go to this school, you could become a marine mechanic, you'd get stamp of approval on the way out the door by that school, and they had agreements for job placement. And in some of these places, they have lifetime job placement. It's crazy. So if you choose their school and you pay for their program and you graduate and you stay current, they will help you with job placement. And I don't know if that's prevalent in industry, but it was something that definitely existed at the time when I was at MMI down in Orlando, Florida for a very brief time. So all of those are very beneficial. A couple of the other benefits to trade schools is locations. Some of them are in locations close to where people are growing up. You can go earn your trade at a trade school in your region, and many of them are state funded, and they have programs to help with tuition assistance or even scholarships. So if you have someone that's interested in acquiring a trade, and they are limited in finance, whether because of work or whatever, they good chances they'll have something local if they live in a well-populated area. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the middle of a great city, but could be a decently populated area, and there should be at least some options for trade schools there. And then I would say the last one is you can make a living while you get your education. So many of these programs have like a temporary job placement while you're in school. They'll have you working as an apprentice on site, and you see this a lot with journeymen, where they're working for their journeyman and they haven't quite achieved it yet, but they have job placement with certain companies, and they can work for those same companies while they're in their program, getting their education. The company benefits from it, and then they have like preference for hire once they graduate their program and become licensed or certified, depending on what they're doing. But yeah, those are pretty cool options for trade school. Now, Of course, we look at college as one of the things that we aspire for children to get into out of high school. It's one of the options. At least when I was growing up in the 80s and 90s, it was big for our parents who had yet to go to college to say, hey, look, go to college, go get an education. My dad was adamant about this when I was a kid. He would sit me down on the stool in the automotive shop where we worked on the weekends, and he would say, hey, look, I want you to watch your old man sweep and swab this auto bay. And I want you to remember this. And I want you to think about this when you get older. If you don't want to be doing this, go to college. Right? And he was an electrician, but he was also a mechanic. And he went active duty and became an electrician in the Coast Guard. And I thought, wow, that's a really powerful way to kind of try and impress on your kids that college is important. However, as I got older, he didn't pressure me to go to school. He was definitely not one of those parents that was like, you have to go to college, you have to go to this school. Yeah, I know some people I grew up with, that their parents, their grandparents, their grandparents, parents. I mean, they'd all gone to this same university, and they were pressuring their kids to carry on that tradition. We didn't have any of that pressure in my family. If anything, we were all tradesmen, and there was a pressure to learn some type of skill outside of just using your brain for think work. You had to be able to use your hands for laboring and for some type of skill as well, because there was a lot of utility in that outside of work, right? I mean, think about the money you save when you can do construction or when you can do automotive work on your own. I mean, I've paid very little in my life for automotive work because of that. So anyways, super cool thing that my dad did for me, and he did impress upon me the power of education and the value of it. But he didn't use it as a parenting tool to try and pressure me into one route or another. And as a matter of fact, by the time I got out of high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Most people don't. I mean, I'm convinced that most people don't really know what they want to do when they graduate from high school anyway. So it wasn't unrealistic for us to have that conversation, he and I, and for it to be fluid. So college, you can choose your destiny in college if you really do your research to make sure you choose a viable degree. Okay, and I'll explain that more in a minute. And I am a little biased as someone who didn't go to college right out of high school, waited till I was probably in my mid-20s to start my undergraduate work when I finally got stationed on land, not on a ship. And then when I started my undergraduate work, I only looked at things that were beneficial to me and the Coast Guard. I didn't look at anything that was, I didn't look to study like music or some type of art, even though I would love to have been an English teacher. Don't tell anyone I said that. It's not what I did for a living. I was a mechanic. So doing something that was more aligned with my career path was definitely my priority. So I looked into mechanical engineering, and I started out with mechanical engineering, but it became really hard to sustain that because of my deployment schedule. So I started looking into other routes as well, and I fell onto an industrial. And that worked out for me because as I started in industrial engineering, when my deployment schedule got a little tough, and I ended up looking down the barrel of another several years on a ship being deployed, I was able to shift to industrial management and finish up an industrial management undergrad at the time, and then worry more about the engineering stuff later. So that was beneficial to me. But you'll note here that I didn't dump on arts. I'm not dumping on arts. I think arts carry their own weight, but you should not expect them to be as lucrative and in demand as a technical degree, because the reality is they just aren't. So if you are, telling someone you should definitely go to college just for the sake of saying going to college is the right thing to do because that's what you've been told your whole life, then you're steering someone wrong. But if you're telling someone go to college because what you want to do is become a professional, whether it be an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer or whatever, but a professional, enter a profession, not just study something that you think is cool and then do nothing with it later, then I think you're giving someone good advice. If you tell them to do the opposite, if you tell them to go study something that they're not going to be able to easily get a job in, they're not going to be able to apply in the real world, then it's more of an endeavor of passion than it is aligning you to a future career, right? Now, there are people out there who are going to say, dude, you can't tell that to people. You can study whatever you want to study. And if anyone wants to go out and make a career doing whatever they want to do, there's options. You're absolutely correct. There are. But think about the probability of that and think about whether that investment is worth the, whether it lines up well with the probability of success or failure. Okay. If you were in my field of work, I'd say, did you do a business case analysis on that? Was this a smart financial decision for you to do this? I think many people would say no. It wasn't a smart idea for me to go study X, Y, and Z. Now, that doesn't mean it doesn't work for some people. It absolutely does. But if you're studying psychology and you're not going to be a psychologist, then what are you doing? So anyways, long story short, you have to choose your degree path very wisely. The second piece of that is if you're trying to reduce cost, don't look at a 4-year university right out the gate. Look at a community college for 2 years, especially if you're looking at technical degrees. And then look at what's called commonly known as like a 2+2 program, where you go to 2 years of community college in, let's just say, mechanical engineering studies. And then you roll right into the university for the last 2 years of your 4-year degree. And you get those last 2 years at the university and you leave there with an ABET accredited engineering degree, right? And you saved 2 years worth of additional expense by not going directly to the university. The other thing is living expenses, right? So if you can curb those living expenses by not moving to a university across country or across state or whatever, where you have to pay for an apartment or, on campus living quarters or whatever, dorms, whatever the case may be for that university, that's a huge cost savings, right? So I didn't have parents that could pay for me to go to college. I didn't have the money to put myself through college like that. So my options were local, and I was lucky to have good local options. So I waited till I got in the military and actually had an income and I had some experience and I had something called tuition assistance. And that's something that I do want to talk about in just a moment. So we talked about location. We talked about some costs. We talked about being wise about choosing your degree path, right? And the same thing goes for trades, right? So I'm going to mix a little bit here because we talked about trades and we're talking about college. I'm going to talk about both of them for a second. When you're choosing a trade, it's much like choosing your major in a university, right? You want to make sure you choose something that's going to be beneficial to you. There's a lot of local and state funded programs that will put someone through a program like medical coding or some other type of administrative task that is needed at the lower levels of administrative functions and organizations, and the state's willing to help someone get on their feet and get certified in those things, and it's a good starting point, right? But don't look at that as the be all end all. That's different than going to school, a trade school, for like becoming a mechanic or an electrician, a welder, some type of high demand skill set. So they pay differently. If you're going to be a welder, you're going to get paid differently than if you're an administrative assistant at the local dock in the box, right? So just have realistic expectations, but choosing your path very wisely when it comes to the trade you're looking at. Same thing with your college degree. Okay, so, or I should say college major. Now, how much does the school selection matter? And this goes for trades. Like I said before, look at options that they have for trade schools. Do they have job placement? Do they have financial assistance? What's the reputation for the school? Does it provide the licensure or certification that you need in that industry? Because there's a lot of places that will sell you an education, but they don't have the certification. They don't have accreditation by the right regional body or professional association associated with that career path. So you have to make sure that they're accredited properly and that they can provide you with the license or certification that you need in that industry, because they are not all created equal. And the same thing goes for your university. If you're going to be in a technical degree field, you have to make sure that it has the appropriate amount of accreditation. For most engineering programs, that's ABET. Right? Okay. So we talked about those. Let's talk about the military for a second. So I'm not going to go round and round about whether it's worth it to go in the military to get an education or not. It's not the only reason you serve in the military. I mean, let's be honest here. You're going to have a really hard time serving in the military if you don't have some desire to serve your country or do something bigger than yourself or do something unique. and challenging. It's physically demanding. It can be mentally demanding. It can be emotionally demanding. It is going to be emotionally demanding. That type of work is not something you could just jump into to get some money for school, even though I do know people that did that. But those are the people that are disappointed the whole time they're in. And if that's what gets you in the door, then fine, but find new meaning once you get in, because the military is about much more than that. But let's say you look at even don't like I was no money to start school. Even going to a trade school would have been a lift financially. Um, let's go join the military. You're going to get a paycheck, which is great. You're going to be at the bottom of the barrel there as far as pay is concerned off the start, but it's a good start. And I'm assuming you're going in with no college, right? So there's no commission here. It's enlisted. And you come out the other side with some skill set. So when you go into the military, you have to choose an MOS or a rating, some type of specialty, some type of skill set that you want to specialize in. And then hopefully this service will have a demand for that, and you can get into a school. Some of those schools come with weights. Others, they're wide open, and you can find out about those at the recruiting office when you go to sign up. So I chose to be a mechanic when I came in. So for me, when I joined the Coast Guard, I said, hey, I want to be a mechanic. I want to work on big engines. They said, well, great. We have a rate called machinery technician, and that's what they do. And I said, okay, where do those people work? Okay. So if you send me to school to be a machinery technician to get a trade, where do those people work? And what type of work do they do? And where are those units located? And for me, it was pretty simple. I was going to go back. I was going to go to a ship, and I was going to serve on a ship, and I could travel all over the world if that's what they were doing. During that 3 to 4 years I was on that ship, and I got to learn a little bit about the different locations. The Coast Guard had great locations. Local for me was Portsmouth, Virginia, so that was good. But Boston, at the time, Charleston, South Carolina, a couple places in Florida, including Key West and St. Petersburg, Florida, Tampa Bay area. And then on the West Coast, you had Oregon and Seattle. And of course, there were a couple other locations that were a little less known at the time. Hawaii, Alaska, some pretty cool duty stations. So I thought, well, this is, what's the worst that could happen is that I end up in the trade I want, but in a place I don't want to be. And all those places sound pretty good. So let's do it. Right? So I was okay with that. Cape May, New Jersey was another, North Carolina. And these were the types of ships that I wanted to go on. So you can see I didn't have terrible options. For people that go into the aviation community, it's different for them. Yes, for people that join different services, it's different for them. You join the Navy, you could be going to Japan. I have friends that are Coast Guard that are in Guam right now. That's where they wanted to be. That's where they needed to be. And that's where they are. So you could go anywhere in the world and do anything pretty much if you put your mind to it. You choose the right service and the right trade when you join the military. Now, you leave the military with experience in a trade. But while you're in, you have to look at what it takes to get certified in the field that you want to work in when you get out of the military. So if you're looking to transfer your skills from the military to the outside, you need to look at credentialing, professional credential programs. 20 years ago, they didn't exist, if at all. They existed in very small number, and they were very specialized and limited. But now there has been a push in the last 5 to 10 years to get those off the ground, and they're actually happening now. So you can get recognized for your experience and your trade knowledge and education in the service. It transferred directly over to professional credentials in the outside of the military. You can do that now, and there's some really great enlisted and officer leadership in the services that have pushed really hard in the last decade to get that done. And I was fortunate to work with a few of them while I was at Coast Guard headquarters, and those people pushed for that every single day. So thank you for doing that for the young people coming behind us, right? Because that's what we really would have liked to have had when we were active. So that's an option. Now, once you learn that trade, you're pretty much locked into that trade while you're enlisted. If you want to trade, or if you want to switch trades, you want to go into a different specialty, a different rating, a different MOS, you have to put in a request to do that. Some services it's easier than others. In the Coast Guard, you had to get the Master Chief of your rate and the rate you want to go into to both agree to it. And then you had to go wait on a list to get to school. And then you had to go through the training again. And you're probably going to take a rank reduction if you were senior enough already in the rate you had. So you were going to lose some money. You were going to lose some rank. But for people that really wanted to change their rating, it was the way to do it. So there you go. Your option has been provided to you, and you chose it, right? And you get what you asked for. And so say thank you. Anyways, so yeah, those are some options right out of the gate. If you're unsure about what community you want to work in, that you can do. And this isn't just geared toward young people coming straight out of school, although that's the majority of the people asking this question. But you have people that are even up against 30 years old. They're like, I'm not happy with what I chose 10 years ago. I want to go do something different. Well, all of those options are pretty much still there for you. The military gets limited the more aged you are, and most of their programs start to impact age starts to impact selection for enlistment and different rates and stuff between the ages of 28 and 32. When I was in the service, could be way different now. So make sure you talk to your recruiter about that. But the reality is, you do have options, and you should seek them out. And if it's something you really want to do, you should pursue it. And don't feel sorry about that. I mean, but do your research before you do it. So, what do I want my kids to do? Right. This was the thing I always asked myself in the military was I'm getting ready to take care of someone else's children when they join the service. So I need to look at them as I would want the leadership to look at my kids if they were to join. And I'll do the same here. What do I want my kids to do? Well, I want them to do what makes them happy. Okay. I don't care if they're a doctor. I don't care if they're an electrician. I don't care if they're a nurse. I don't care if they're a lawyer. I don't care what they are, as long as they're happy, right? I don't care if they want to go move freight at the loading dock. I don't care. As long as they're happy and they're doing something that's not bad, and they're making a decent living, and they're doing good. They're paying their taxes and they're taking care of their family. I really don't care. What is it of my business what they do for a living, right? But again, all that's legal, right? And all of it's respectable work. So there we go. Now, I will advise them, just like I did here, to look at all their options and to think about what each one does. And to also think that you are not stuck in one path because you chose it and invested time and money in it when you were younger. You have the ability to change your life if you want to. It may be hard. It may cost more money. It may take a lot more time, but you do have the option. And that's a blessing in this country. That is amazing. There are places in this world where you do not have that ability. You just don't. So enjoy it because you have it, right? We're a little spoiled here in first world North America. So anyway, I'm almost at the 30-minute mark, and I wanted to make sure that I covered some professional industry stuff as well. So beyond the entry level and mid and maybe lower to mid level entry positions, certain fields are having a lot of difficulty hiring people. I'm a logistics engineer / systems engineer for Department of Defense acquisition offices at the U.S. Navy. I work predominantly, I work totally for Team Submarines at NAVSEA as a contractor, supporting them. And we have a hard time getting the right talent in logistics engineering because we can't take someone right out of college with no experience and find them in mass, right? We can take them. They're hard to find. We're not looking for supply chain. When you think logistics, think everything that it takes to take care of things. I need people with engineering backgrounds. I need people with finance backgrounds. I need people with training backgrounds. I need people with supply chain backgrounds. I need all of it. But you'll notice I said backgrounds, not just education. So if you have an education in that, the job opportunities, entry level, are there. They're right for the taking. You should look for them and you should come work with us. But they're in DC, right? You can get government or contractor employment in this type of field. And but you're not going to get a mid to senior level position without anywhere from 8 to 15 years experience. You're looking for the 5 to 10 years experience for your mid grade, and you're looking at 10 plus usually for your more senior people, sometimes 15 plus. And it's really important that for your senior people, you probably also have a master's degree. If you don't have experience, when I mean a lot, I mean like 20 years, right? So if you have 10 years, you don't have a master's, it's going to be hard to get into a senior position. It's going to be really hard. At least as I sit today in the field I work in today. But you have to think about what level of education aligns with what levels of employment in certain fields. And I'm not telling you that to try and recruit people to my work, although you know how to get a hold of me if you're interested. I'm telling you that because it's not different for other industries, right? People are looking for people. They're looking for entry level, mid grade, and senior people. We need people in all of these positions. And the hardest thing to get is not education, it's experience, because people can pay for education and get education at multiple walks of life, but it takes time in the seat to get the experience, and that's the hard thing to come by. So my only caution to people that decide they want to shift careers is to make sure that once you decide to do that, you understand you're starting your clock over in that particular field that you're entering, and that you should expect an entry level position in that field, right? And I say expect it. Doesn't mean you're going to have to get an entry level position, but you should expect an entry level position because you don't have any experience in that field. So if I were to go completely out of my element and want to go work in some completely different industry, I wouldn't expect to walk in at a senior level. If I want to be a senior level, I got to stay in the industry I'm in, right? But I shouldn't expect senior level employment in other industries that I have zero experience in, unless that company is really looking to differentiate their leadership a little bit and seek someone with my particular experience and skill set. And the last point I'm going to make is advanced education. So that's a little bit of advanced education talk about whether you should pursue a master's degree or advanced education. The same thing goes for advanced certifications, right? You know, I've got a project management professional certification from PMI. I also have my CMRP from SMRP, the Society of Maintenance and Reliability Professionals. And those are certifications, that are based on experience and knowledge and application. And then so you have to have a little bit of that before you can earn those certifications. But as a way to demonstrate your mid-grade to senior level understanding in those fields is to get those certifications. The other way is through a master's degree, right? In those disciplines. And then there's people that do like I did, and they lose a couple of years of sleep and they drive themselves and their families nuts doing a dissertation and earning a doctorate. So, you know, don't assume that just because you get a doctorate that you're going to automatically, you know, walk right into a senior job either. I would not compete for a senior job in many industries because they don't need a doctor of engineering in healthcare. Just pulling that out of the air. Who knows? Maybe they do. But anyways, that's my quick 30-minute brain dump on trades, college, and job opportunities in unique fields, and the way you should kind of look at them from someone in industry, and the difference between a trade and a profession, and the difference between a non-profession academic background and a professional education background. And it's really important that you kind of help people that are coming behind you understand these things if they want to both enter your community, or there's someone that you know or are mentoring and they're entering another community and you want to help them gain an understanding of what they're investing their time and energy in. So thank you so much for joining us today. For those that were able to watch the live stream, for those that were unable to watch the live stream, it will be posted on YouTube, and I'll post a link to it on LinkedIn. I believe I also got this onto Twitter. So if you're watching this on Twitter, what's up? Don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn. And if you can't follow us on LinkedIn, or you also want to follow us on YouTube, please check us out on YouTube as well. Again, my name is Lucas Marino. This is the Life Cycles live stream, and I'll check you guys in a couple of days. Thanks.